Good morning to you. It is Saturday, June the 7th, and we begin this hour with what is probably the most consequential legal development of Donald Trump's second term, which is that the president is now publicly turning on the Federalist Society, the same conservative legal group which he relied to pick judges during his first term, the same powerful group that helped carry him to power. Their picks include a majority of the Supreme Court and hundreds of other federal judges, but this brewing feud could make Trump's next wave of judicial appointments more dangerous. From the start, this was a marriage of convenience. Trump leveraged the Federalist Society's credibility to win Republican votes. The fallout spilled into public view this week after Trump lost his tariff case before the U.S. Court of International Trade. Although a federal circuit stayed the ruling the very next day, Trump was still fuming, and on Thursday he lashed out on Truth Social, quote, "I was new to Washington, and it was suggested that I use the Federalist Society as a recommending source on judges. I did so openly and freely, but then realized that they were under the thumb of a real sleazebag named Leonard Leo, a bad person who, in his own way, probably hates America and obviously has his own separate ambitions," end quote. Now, Trump owes much of his impact on the federal bench, including on the Supreme Court majority, to the longtime Federalist leader, this man, Leonard Leo. So yes, Trump's insults are out there, but even when a broken clock is right twice a day, the Federalist Society does have its own ambitions. Their loyalty tends to be to conservative legal doctrine, not necessarily to Trump. And on occasion, Federalist Society-affiliated judges have stood up to Donald Trump. Case in point, when Trump tried to overturn the 2020 election, many of his hand-picked Federalist Society-vetted judges refused to rubber stamp that effort. One Trump appointee even opened his opinion with a sharp rebuke, quote, "Free, fair elections are the lifeblood of our democracy," end quote. Since then, Trump's resentment toward the conservative legal establishment has grown, and the feeling appears mutual. As Vox's Ian Millhiser has reported, Federalist Society insiders have grown increasingly ambivalent about Trump, a shift that's starting to show at their events. Quote, "At a recent Federalist Society conference on executive power, many of the speakers denounced Trump's incompetence and warned that it would prevent conservatives from achieving lasting policy victories during this administration. Some argued that Trump's signature economic policy, his tariffs, are illegal," end quote. Now, before you celebrate Trump's break from a movement that brought us the Dobbs decision, that weakened voting rights, and that scaled back environmental protections, I want you to just think for a moment about the alternative. When it comes to Trump, the thing to remember is that things can always get worse. His feud with the one institution that still managed to constrain him is a warning sign. It signals that in a second Trump term, Trump isn't looking for ideology in judges. He's looking for fealty, which in fact is measurably worse. As my next guest, Akhil Amar, recently noted, without the Federalist Society, Trump, left to his own devices, would have tried to put a whole bunch of thugs on the bench. Just look at his latest judicial pick. Emil Bovey, Trump's own criminal defense lawyer, tapped for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Bovey's part of a growing slate of MAGA reactionaries that Trump is putting forward. He currently works at the Justice Department, where he reportedly oversaw a purge of career prosecutors. According to a Justice Department memo obtained by the Associated Press, as acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bovey directed federal prosecutors in New York to drop a corruption case against Mayor Eric Adams. Bovey himself told a court the case was preventing the mayor from communicating with federal authorities responsible for immigration enforcement, a Trump administration priority. According to the Associated Press, Bovey also placed the lead prosecutors on administrative leave. Several prosecutors, including the prosecutor who'd been leading the case, a Republican, resigned in protest, saying they could not carry out Bovey's order and still pursue justice impartially. That's a quote. Ed Whalen, former Bush administration lawyer and longtime conservative legal commentator, says he has, quote, "serious doubts that Bovey has the character and integrity to be worthy of confirmation as a federal judge," end quote. Former Republican nominations counsel Greg Nunziata called Bovey's nomination outrageous and unacceptable and urged the Senate to reject it. Even the Wall Street Journal is sounding the alarm. In a scathing editorial, they warned, quote, "The president should understand that his attacks on judicial conservatives will hurt his own agenda and legacy. Mr. Trump is likely to see fewer judges retire, lest they be replaced by partisan hacks. That includes Justices Samuel Alito, age 75, and Clarence Thomas, age 76. Keep exercising daily, good justices," end quote. Keep exercising daily, good justices. A reminder of the things could always get worse doctrine of the Trump era in the form of a plea to the most arch-conservative justices on the court to stay alive, to prevent Trump from filling the bench with unqualified sycophants. Trump isn't even hiding the ball anymore. He's signaling exactly what kind of judiciary he wants in a second term, one that rubber stamps his policies. And that's probably why we haven't seen a single new federal judicial vacancy announced since mid-April, which is well behind the normal pace. In fact, Ed Whelan noted on X that one very conservative appellate judge told him as much, that they're staying on the bench because of concerns over who would be picked as a successor. Trump's effort to consolidate power is now nearly complete. Following Congress, then the executive branch, the judiciary is all that remains outside of his reach. With me now is Akhil Reed Amar, professor of law and political science at Yale University, host of America's Constitution podcast, and author of numerous books, including The Words That Made Us, America's Constitutional Conversation. Akhil, good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming in for an important conversation, because this is where the viewer who's not legally trained needs to divorce themselves from the idea that I don't like conservative justices. You may or may not like them, but they work on the basis of ideology and precedent and the Constitution. Something different is happening under Trump.
Under Trump, too.
Under Trump, too.
Or at least threatened to happen. Yes, so our audience, I'm sure, has heard so much about the Federalist Society, and I think some of what they've heard may not be fair. The Federalist Society, yes, they're overwhelmingly conservative. They have a view, but it's a very respectable legal view. In the main, they are originalists, which means they care actually about what the Constitution itself really says, what it was originally designed to do. And we liberals can actually also believe in originalism. Our audience has been told sometimes, oh, it's always conservative. Not true at all. Last time I was here, I waved a copy of the Constitution and said, actually, the Supreme Court is disregarding this when they say presidents or ex-presidents are immune, because this doesn't say that. That's originalism.
Right.
And we're going to need originalism going forward. The Federalist Society are not Trump hacks. They are, many of them, very distinguished folks. Our audience may have heard of Leonard Leo. He's kind of the money and the power broker end. Let me mention someone else. He's the co-founder of the Federalist Society. He's the co-national chairman of the Federalist Society. Leo is the other one. He's the idea guy. He was the founder. His name is Steve Calabresi. He's a law professor. He and I co-teach together every year at Yale. And he is going to be the leading person, or one of the two or three leading people, opposing Trump on, for example, birthright citizenship.
Laws enacted by Congress have been thrown out the window. We filed these lawsuits because they've been pursued illegally. And Donald Trump said maybe a month or so ago, when asked whether he has the obligation of following the Constitution, he says, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. We cannot stand aside as attorneys general or as a public at large when we have a president of the United States who took an oath to uphold the Constitution, who's saying that he doesn't know whether he has to follow the Constitution. Certainly for me as a cancer survivor, the NIH grants and NSF grants that allow research institutions to research cures for cancer and other disease is a personal one to me. Birthright citizenship is a personal one to me because I am a birthright citizen. But across the board, it's a methodology.
A.G. Jennings, there's so many things. You guys are all of you are firing on all cylinders to push back against this administration. Are there things coming down the road that you have your eye on that we aren't paying attention to just yet?
Well, we're paying attention to everything he does. And when he breaks the law, and we have the legal tools in our toolbox, which we tend to have pretty strongly, we're going to fight him. He seems to be very focused right now on immigration and requiring people like friends of mine who fight domestic violence to sign certifications to get violence against women funds that require these organizations to agree that they are not going to do anything illegal in the immigration front. They're not going to practice diversity. They are not going to do X, Y, Z. And it just makes no sense to me. These are grants that have historically been handed out to victims of domestic violence. They've been a bulwark for our state and states across the country fighting against domestic violence. And now they're being asked to certify to things that have nothing to do with their organization's mission. That's cruel, that's unnecessary, and it's hurting victims directly.
A.G. Weiser, one of the things that we know about this administration is they're not scared to go after their political opponents, and the retaliation personally on folks who they see as their enemies comes almost every single day. Are you worried about political retaliation personally?
Well, President Trump's attacked me personally on Truth Social, and I have had death threats against me. I'm putting myself out there to run for governor of my state to stay in elected public service because I'm not afraid. And I believe that this republic is a republic where everybody has the rights accorded under the Constitution. The 14th Amendment says all persons have due process of law. My family came here after surviving the Holocaust. My mom was actually born in a concentration camp and was liberated by the U.S. Army. And so, like my fellow AGs, protecting the Constitution is personal to me. I'm not afraid of standing up for what I believe in. I recognize that we're living in a very dark time, and a time when people who are elected officials, even judges, are being targeted, but we're fighting for something we believe in, and we have work to do. We have our own obligations to the Constitution. It's worth mentioning, and A.J. Rowell said this, the president said he doesn't know if he's to follow the Constitution, and that's clear he doesn't know because the first day in office, he tried to override the 14th Amendment's protection of birthright citizenship. And when that case went to the Supreme Court, people weren't even defending the merits of what he did.
He's turning on one of his longest allies, I guess, the Federalist Society, because he keeps losing in court, and he's losing at the Supreme Court. Not all the time, not enough, but he's losing sometimes. And for Donald, that's unacceptable. When you're a dictator cult leader, 90%, 80%, whatever, 75% loyalty, that's 100% disloyalty. I've been saying this for years. If you're 99% loyal to a normal person, they are grateful. If you're 99% loyal to Trump, you're 100% disloyal because he only remembers that 1%. And so he's turning on the Federalist Society, which means he's also turning against the conservative judges. Now, that's especially the three he picked. He's been mad about Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh for voting against him more than Alito and Thomas. But recently, we've seen, with the deportation to El Salvador, we've seen a unanimous ruling, and that means it includes Thomas and Alito and all the rest, telling Trump you can't just make a mistake and leave someone in another country. Unacceptable. And we saw Trump lost that case. He's now back in the United States. Kilmar, he's back. Right? And so Trump is going to continue to get very, very angry at the right-wingers on the court because they are loyal, but never loyal enough for a totalitarian.